Hey everyone, my name is Burch, and this is my geek review of the films that I saw in 2014. The top 5 worst films that I saw, and the top 5 best films that I saw. Now, I've noticed that the longer I tend to ramble on, the quicker my lo-fi camera starts to jitter in and out. So I figured I'm just going to go ahead and jump into this and tackle everything all in one go. And I'm going to take a page from Yahtzee Crowshaw's book, He of Zero Punctuation, and I'll put a link in the description below so that you can go check out his reviews of video games. But when he does his top 5 best and worst, he presents them one on each tier at a time to kind of go back and forth and illustrate what the year was actually like. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin with the worst, and then I'm going to go on to the best, and we'll just alternate from there. So, without further ado, let's start with number 5 of the worst films that I saw in 2014, and that would be Transformers: Age of Extinction. It was a big, dumb action movie with fantastic special effects, stereotypical characters, and awful dialogue. It's a Michael Bay movie. It was a Michael Bay movie. And you know, I haven't seen a Transformers film since the second Transformers film came out. And the reason I haven't seen a Transformers movie since then is because it kind of was insulting to the audience's intelligence. It was filled with racist robots and terrible dialogue and, you know, fantastic big budget special effects. And that was it. Transformers: Age of Extinction is overlong, overstays its welcome, and becomes repetitive pretty damn quickly. And come on, movie? Anytime a movie has to pull out some sort of statute to justify the fact that one of the main characters is in a relationship with an underage girl, there's no washing that taste out of your mouth. So all those things considered, did I get my money's worth? Kinda, yeah, although I wish I had gotten about half an hour's less money's worth out of it. I don't know, it's a big dumb action movie. But out of all the big dumb action movies that came out this year, it was one of the worst. But not the worst, as soon we will see. Transformers 5 is number 5 on my worst films that I've seen released in 2014. But what about number 5 of the best films that I've seen released in 2014? Well, that's going to go to Edge of Tomorrow. Not a big dumb action movie, but a big smart action movie, packed with eye-popping special effects, fantastically crafted action sequences, character interactions, a timeline which jumps back and forth and doesn't insult the audience's intelligence, but rather trusts that they will be able to keep up with what is going on. It's got the best Tom Cruise performance I've seen in a good long damn time. Emily Blunt is great. The direction from Doug Liman, who's always, you know, I didn't really see the Bourne films. Spy movies aren't really my thing, but man, he's done some really good movies, and this is probably one of his best, if not the best one that he has, you know, put out there in recent years. It's a fantastic action film. Great for guzzling down popcorn and slurping soda to. It keeps you entertained, it keeps you riveted, it keeps you paying attention, and it rewards the audience with a fantastic storyline and good characters, aside from the fact that, hey, we've got, you know, aliens and guns and explosions and futuristic sci-fi setting. It just works and is rewarding, and it's nice to see something with a little intelligence out there in the big budget action scale. Why this movie didn't make as much money as Transformers is anyone's guess, but it's probably because Transformers had big robots, titties, and Michael Bay attached to it. Regardless, Edge of Tomorrow is number 5 of the best films that I saw released in 2014. Now let's go back to the worst. What was number 4 of the worst films I saw? That's going to go to Maleficent. Maleficent is the kind of film that would have worked if it had taken the track of Wicked. Why is Maleficent Maleficent? Wicked went back and said, so the Wicked Witch of the West is understood, or misunderstood, and the reason that she's wicked is because of these reasons. Now, from what I understand about Wicked, it doesn't actually take away anything from the Wizard of Oz. It doesn't say, hey, you know that chick in the Wizard of Oz, the green one, well, she's completely misunderstood, and she's actually the hero of the story. No, Wicked said, hey, the Wicked Witch of the West is like this because of these reasons, but she's still a bad guy. Maleficent really pissed me off because in Sleeping Beauty, Maleficent became quickly and easily one of the most evil, vile, and fantastic villains in any Disney film. She embodied that evil. She embraced that evil. She was thoroughly thrilled by her own evilness. She was completely remorseless, and we were okay with that. However, the film starring Angelina Jolie tried to take the Wicked track, saying Maleficent is misunderstood, and here is why. But then they changed the story around to make Maleficent the hero of the story. It really bothered me because I like Sleeping Beauty. I love that film. It is so meticulously and artfully crafted, and the scale, the fairy tale scale of it was fantastic. Had Maleficent starred anyone else, any other villain, and then gone and taken the track of like, well, they were the hero the entire time. As an original story, I could have bought it, but not as the character that we have known since 1950 whatever, when Sleeping Beauty came out. Maleficent is a force of evil, and she always has been, and she's been portrayed as such for, decades. So to have this film come out and not only be poorly written, poorly directed, and have some meandering sort of scope and grandeur was really insulting to me, not just as a film goer, but as someone who has enjoyed Disney films since I was a young child. Sleeping Beauty is a classic. It is an iconic achievement in animation. Maleficent, however, shits all over that and gives it the finger. So I give it the finger right back. It was the fourth worst movie I saw released in 2014, and happily I will not be revisiting it. Now, number 4, oh god, it's so difficult. It's so difficult. It's so difficult. The top 4 in my best category are so goddamn close. It's so difficult to choose one or the other or above any of the other ones. Number 4 is going to be A Most Wanted Man. Tightly directed, just riveting filmmaking. It stars the late Philip Seymour Hoffman in a role that he absolutely disappeared into and embodied. It also stars a great cast: Willem Dafoe, Rachel McAdams, Robin Wright. Just like, wow, people who came out of nowhere that I had no idea were in this movie kept coming on the screen. They're all very deep in their character, and they're all sporting accents, save for one or two of them. The film is about a man who runs an anti-terrorist unit in Hamburg, Germany, and he's trying to fish out connections to Al-Qaeda, and it is not really enunciated as to what drives him, as to what gives him motivation. All we know about him is that he had a previous spy ring at Once Upon a Time, which his cover was blown, and a lot of good people died under his command. So we have a very tightly wound story trying to figure out, are we following this guy who has ties to jihadist movements? Is he a bad guy? Is this other guy over here a bad guy? It's this very well constructed, very meticulous film in which Philip Seymour Hoffman's character is very meticulous and has been working very, very hard at constructing this house of cards in order to achieve his goals. And the ending is absolutely brutal, and it leaves the viewer breathless and speechless. The only reason it is a little bit lower on the list than I'd like to put it is because of the fact that at the beginning, I really had to kind of tune into the dialogue. A lot of it is like kind of mumbled. The accents are a little bit hard to kind of chew on for a minute there. But after about 20 minutes, I was able to kind of catch on to the way that the dialogue was going. But it is shot impeccably. The direction is super tight. The acting is brilliant. It is a film that you have to absolutely see. Number 4 on my top 4, released in 2014. Number 3 of the worst is going to go to Transcendence, and it's hard to really. I would have to make an entire video listing and detailing everything that is wrong with it, and I don't really feel like doing it because the film left me completely empty. Johnny Depp stars as a computer engineer who's working with artificial intelligence and believes that artificial intelligence could at some point overcome man, or man's intelligence as far as being self-aware. There are zealots out there who decide that they don't like the way he talks and they shoot him dead, and he gets uploaded into the computer system. And then we spend the next, hour and a half trying to figure out, is he actually in there, in the computer? Is he doing all these things? Or is it an artificial intelligence that thinks it's him? Unfortunately, any intelligence around that mystery just goes right out the door, and we've got a boring, tedious, just mess of a movie that slogs along thinking and pandering to the fact that it is intelligent, but instead it's just slow and empty and doesn't bother to try and really truly ask any of the major questions. It tries to be a big budget thought provoker that ends up being a sludge. It's just boring and uninteresting, and that's why it's, like, I had high hopes. There was so much more that they could have done with it, but in essence, it just fails to reach. It relies mostly on a phoned-in performance by Johnny Depp, and great cinematography, and the special effects where they were actually beautiful, but the questions raised are never answered, and they're never really truly explored, and it just ended up being this, like, a hyped up movie that made me sit there and wish I was asleep. I could have taken a nap, and I wouldn't have missed a single thing. It is the third worst film of 2014 for me. Okay, third best. All right, number 3, Interstellar. Where Transcendence had a lot of questions that it failed to answer and or explore, Interstellar might have given a little bit too much exposition in places and a few too many answers, but it definitely reached and it went to explore, and it had the journey and the search for knowledge, and God, the emotional impact of that film was absolutely hammering, brutal. Like, I was an emotional wreck after seeing this film, and listening to the soundtrack brings up all those emotions all over again. If we were talking about my favorite films of the year, Interstellar would definitely be number 1. However, we're talking about the best films, and a little bit of clunky dialogue, and an ending that, depending on your perspective, may have gone on a little too long and was not as buttoned up, or a little too buttoned up neatly, I mean to say. Kind of knocks it down the list a little bit, but overall, Christopher Nolan's space epic is just that. It's epic, it's beautiful, it is thought-provoking, it will hammer away at your emotions, especially if you're a parent. And for me, just Matthew McConaughey's performance in the film is fearless. He throws everything into it. It is worth seeing. It is one of those movies that I am planned to buy on Blu-ray day 1, and I cannot wait to see it again. It's just a stellar piece of filmmaking achievement, and that's why it's number 3 on the best films of 2014. Okay, so what was number 2 of the worst that I saw? Well, that's going to go to Into the Storm. Into the Storm was saved from being the single worst film I saw this year from 2 moments. There are 2 moments in the movie that actually made my jaw drop. Otherwise, the film is a mess. It's a found footage movie that somehow has found footage of people, and I don't know. I'm not going to get into it. I could go on. Much like Transcendence, there is a laundry list of things that are wrong with Into the Storm. But I'm going to go number 1 with the fact that the kid from iCarly is in it. Richard Armitage did not bother to hide his accent very well at all, and it's super coincidental that everyone in the film happened to be exactly where they were at exactly the same time. Now, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of... Oh, nope. See? There it goes. You see? Like, comment, and subscribe if you want me to get a better webcam. Anyways, Into the Storm is marred. Like, there are a lot of films that are super coincidental as far as to how everybody all ended up in the exact same place at the exact same time and how everything all worked out. But if your movie can sell it to me and I can buy it, that's all that there is to it. Films are supposed to be an escape from reality, and then there are more realistic films in which you do require a more tightly wound story, and then there are films that are more leaps of fantasy where it's like, hey, all these things kind of came together at the same time, you either buy it or you don't. Into the Storm does not sell itself. There's nothing thrilling about it, there is nothing entertaining about it, it made me laugh all the way throughout, and I even burst out laughing during the credits because I had just watched the biggest intentional comedy, the second biggest unintentional comedy of the year. So that brings us to what was the second best film that I saw released in 2014. That's going to go to The Rover. Holy shit. Where Into the Storm hammers you over the head with this is everything that is going on in here. The Rover is subtle and creeping and just drives itself along. You are put into the scene, you are put into the film, you don't really know what's going on, all you know is that things are happening, and they give you enough, just enough information to let you know and to give you insight into what is going on, but then it is all about that mystery. Why is Guy Pearce's character so intent on getting his car back? After all, he's able to get other vehicles throughout the film. He's able to get other vehicles and drive to places and go places. I mean, we are living in a world that the film is clearly post-apocalyptic of a kind. Not like Mad Max style, but just enough to know that the economy has collapsed and the world is, at least Australia, is in shambles. So then we're trying to figure out why exactly does this man want his car? His car. Why does he want it back? And that is the driving question of the film. Guy Pearce is excellent in the film. Robert Pattinson blew me the fuck away. It is the best performance he's delivered yet. He disappears into the character. Absolutely disappears. You won't know it's him. You know, like when you first see him, you'll kind of be like, oh, it's that kid from Twilight. But then you try to like, it just, brilliant. That's all I can say without going into spoilers. I don't want to go anywhere near spoiler territory with The Rover because it's just a film you need to sit down and watch and just be blown away by. The ending is, I was speechless. I was absolutely speechless at the very end. The Rover is the second best film that I saw, released in 2014. So, before we get into the number one categories, let's have a few honorable and dishonorable mentions. From the worst category, dishonorable mentions. There were two films that I saw that I could not finish. One of them was called The Adventurer, Curse of the Midas Box, and if you don't know anything about that movie, congratulations. Don't go look up anything about it. It is a meandering, steampunkish, sort of weird, twisted adventure movie, Indiana Jones elements and Victorian London. 20 minutes in, I turned it off. It was just bad. Like, there are movies I can sit through, and then there's bad. And it was bad, and I turned it off. The other film that I turned off about 20 minutes into was I, Frankenstein. Ooh, boy! People, like, it starts off kind of interestingly, examining, like, what happened to the Frankenstein's monster, Adam, after the end of the book, Frankenstein. But then it quickly devolves into people somehow maintaining a straight face, talking about the war between angels and gargoyles. And then it jumps, or is it gargoyles and demons? I don't know. All I know is that 20 minutes in, it was a shit show, and I absolutely could not, I couldn't. There was no way. Now, honorable mentions on the best list. Birdman, which just barely didn't make it onto the list. There were some amazing. It is just. It's a film. It is a well-crafted, fantastic, experimental film, an indie film, but it is so well made, and it leaves you scratching your head quite a few times. And the ending made me go, what? But it is a character, dialogue, story, and just sense of film. It's a unique accomplishment, and it is one that is worth at least sitting down and watching once, which I truly enjoy. Next would be Peabody and Sherman. Mr. Peabody and Sherman was the best animated film that came out last year that I saw. And now, mind you, I haven't seen Big Hero 6, but Peabody and Sherman was lighthearted, witty, clever, intelligent, did not insult the audience even once, and just above all, it's the kind of film that you can sit down as an adult or as a child and really truly enjoy. That is rare, I think, especially in animated films that have been coming out recently. Peabody and Sherman just did a wonderful, magnificent job of being a good movie. Take out the animated aspects. If they had made this live action with the exact same script, with the exact same delivery, and the exact same acting, it would have been a fantastic live action film. Therefore, in my book, that qualifies it as one of the best films that I saw released in 2014. And I really wanted to put her, directed by Spike Jonze and starring Joaquin Phoenix, on this list. I desperately wanted to put it on this movie. on this movie list. But then I discovered that it was actually released at the tail end of 2013, and since I had set myself a very distinct criteria of movies that were released in 2014, I couldn't put it on this list. But it is definitely well worth watching. It is the antithesis of Transcendence, in which it does ask those questions. What happens when you've got an artificial intelligence that evolves in its interactions with humans and is self-aware, and it actually takes it somewhere, and it provides a fantastic, loving, heartbreaking story, and it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. And now, for the number one spots. What was the worst movie that I saw released in 2014? Pompeii left me laughing at every turn, shaking my head in awe and wonder at the spectacle that I was seeing. Not because it was like actually awe-inspiring, but because it was I couldn't figure out who had given Paul Thomas Anderson money. Not Paul Thomas Anderson, Paul W.S. Anderson. Look, I don't know who gives Paul Thomas Anderson money. I don't know who gives Paul W.S. Anderson money. All I know is that if you're a Paul Anderson, you need to stop being given money and stop making movies. Just stop. Paul W.S. Anderson is quickly becoming the Uwe Ball of mainstream cinema. It's like Pompeii was a disaster. Kit Harington is not ready to be a movie star driving a film. Emily Browning was, God, awful, and I couldn't figure out where that came from. Carrie-Anne Moss, you needed a check, didn't you? The only person who seemed to be actually anywhere in character or enjoying themselves was Kiefer Sutherland, and boy did he chew up everything. He was the best part about this movie, and the only thing that kept me putting popcorn in my mouth and watching the movie. It was dreary, it was disastrous, the special effects were terrible, the story was poorly written, there wasn't a single good acting performance in the movie, and much like with Into the Storm, I was laughing my ass off as soon as the credits rolled, because I had just watched the Biggle, I don't know what a Biggle is, the single biggest unintentional comedy of the year, and it was a mess. Don't watch it. But what was the best film that I saw released in 2014? Whew. That distinction is going to go to Gone Girl. It's a movie that still has me speechless. Like, I can't wait to get it on Blu-ray. David Fincher has a knack for making films that are just inescapably brutal and do not shy away from their subject matter, and this one is no different. You get a bunch of people who are not exactly who they say they are, you get unreliable narrators, you get twists and turns that come left and right. This film will shock you and leave your jaw on the floor more than once, and the ending is... To say that the ending is disheartening is an understatement. It's just a brutal, wicked movie. The acting is all on point. Ben Affleck is fantastic in the film. Rosamund Pike is fantastic in the film. Every single performance was great. The direction is spot on. Like, Fincher is a director's director, and this is not, okay, I haven't seen The Social Network. It just, that subject matter doesn't interest me very much. But I've seen all of Fincher's other films, and out of his films, but this is probably his most on-point movie, directorial-wise. The cinematography is absolutely fantastic. The score is just mercilessly creeping in tone. This is a film that literally I could not find anything wrong with or anything about it that I did not like, which was interesting to me because about halfway through the film I was like, really, movie? Really? This is the direction that you're going to go in? Really? This is what you're going to do? And then it immediately took this fantastic left turn, and just I was just completely, totally caught off guard. Like, I didn't even have intentions of seeing it in theaters, but then I had a free night, and I went and saw it, and I hadn't seen any of the previews, and I was just like, okay. And it was everything I wanted it to be, and more, and just, fantastic. And that's 2014 in review for me. So I actually had to film this video twice because I only saw Most Wanted Man yesterday. So like, I knew I needed to throw it on this list. So I refilmed this video. Um, so that's why it's like first thing in the morning. I'm still wearing my hoodie. My hair is, you know, but anyways, so that is my geek review of the films, the best and worst that I saw in 2014. Agree? Disagree? Leave some comments below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what you thought of the films of 2014, of what you saw, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want to see done differently, all of that jazz. Also, like, comment, and subscribe if you want me to get a new webcam, some new technology up in here. Anyways, so this is going to be my last video this year. I'm thinking about trying a secondary series next year. Not just my geek review, but in defense of. Because I did a video called In Defense of Star Trek the Game. And I kind of like the idea of taking something that a lot of people are like, oh, that's terrible, and then going, no, it's not really that bad, and let's talk about why. So, anyways, thank you all so much for watching this. I've only really been doing this, like, I've only kind of renewed interest in my geek review in the last couple of months. And, it's gotten some favorable responses, and thank you so much for that. So I hope to see you in 2015. I hope to be able to do more of these, have a little bit more time to go, see movies and stuff like that. So thank you again, and we'll be seeing you next year. Also, go and check out the gaming channel that I have with my brothers, the California Kings, and see what we've got going on there. Hope you had a great Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you in 2015.